In the UK, a car is deemed a classic or historic vehicle when it becomes 40 years old, and there's a huge choice of great classic cars to be had. But what might be the classic cars of the future? Cars that are currently 20 to 30 years old and have bottomed out in value, that we might consider as desirable classics when the mainstream car market becomes dominated by EVs in the next decade. There are so many to choose from, so I've decided to categorise and start with Roadsters. What is a Roadster? Well, I'm defining it as a two-seat convertible sports car, and I'm looking at selling prices of up to and around £5,000. I'll go through my 14 picks, starting with the 7 more obvious choices, and keep watching for 7 less obvious cars, including some you probably haven't thought of. Possibly the most numerous roadster to come up in my search through the classifieds is the compact Mercedes-Benz SLK. SLK standing for Sportlich, Leicht und Kurz, sporty, light and short. There are some later variants available in this price range too, but let's take a look at their original roadster, the R170, launched in 1995. It was designed by Mercedes legendary stylist Bruno Sacco and featured a folding metal roof to give the feel of coupe or roadster. It was powered by a range of inline-4 and V6 engines, both normally aspirated and supercharged, with power outputs ranging from 134 horsepower up to 349. Only the 4-pot cars can be found in our price range, but you can still get 194 horsepower and decent acceleration from the 2.3 litre supercharged or compressor model. Being a Mercedes-Benz, it's unlikely to lose its appeal as a classic, but you do have to watch out for rust on these earlier cars. The next most plentiful low-budget roadster comes from a classic British sporting marque, and is the mid-engined rear-wheel drive MGF of 1995 and its 2002 update, the TF. Both models are similar in looks, with the later TF having twin faired-in headlamps and a slatted grille, and both are available with either 1.6 or 1.8 litre Rover K-series engines. The main difference is that the F had BMC's hydrogas suspension, whereas the TF sits on conventional coil springs. There's no difference in price between the F and the TF, and very little difference in power output, so it will be down to the buyer to decide which styling and handling they prefer. The next 2 roadsters are equally numerous, and both come from Germany. First up is the Bauhaus-inspired rounded design of the Mark I Audi TT, based on the Mark IV VW Golf platform and launched in roadster form in 1999. In our price range, you'll get a 1.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder power plant, delivering either 178 horsepower or 222 horsepower, depending on the model chosen. The base models were front-wheel drive, but Quattro 4-wheel drive was also available as an option on the lower-powered cars, but standard on the higher-power model. Travelling around 50 miles south of Audi headquarters, you will arrive at the home of BMW, where the next roadster comes from, the equally uniquely styled Z3, although they were actually built in South Carolina, US of A. Launched in 1996, it had a 7-year production run, with engine options rising from 114 horsepower 1.8 litre inline-4 to a 321 horsepower 6-cylinder in the sporting Z3M, although they are well out of budget. The best you'll find for our money is 190 horsepower 2.8 inline-6, either with manual or automatic transmission. You'll also find its successor, the Z4, within budget, but the less conventional looks of the Z3 would, in my view, give it more appeal as a classic. Unsurprisingly, making my list of future classic roadsters is the Mazda MX-5, although the pop-up headlamped Mark Is are already out of budget, so it's the Mark II that we feature here. Also known as the Miata in the US and as the Mazda or Yunos Roadster in Japan, the original MX-5 reopened the market for small 2-seat roadsters in the late 80s. The second generation NB model was built from 1998 and maintained the front-engined rear-wheel drive format of the Mark I. Engine options included 108 horsepower 1.6 litre or 140 horsepower 1.8 litre inline-4s, both of which received a slight uplift in power following a facelift in 2001. All came with manual gearboxes. Unusually, there's a second entry in the category from a manufacturer, the Mercedes-Benz SL, and specifically the Type R230. Larger and more powerful than the SLK, examples of the quad headlamp SL can be found in our price range, with either the 242 horsepower 3.7 litre V6 or the 302 horsepower 5 litre V8. I used to own a midlife version of the R230, and I put out a buying guide video explaining more about the different variants and what to look for. Last of the obvious choices, and in my view the most nailed on pick to become a great classic, is also from the city of Stuttgart, the Porsche Boxster. The Type 986 Boxster was produced from 1996 to 2004 and was available in base form with a 201 horsepower 2.5 litre flat six, rising to a 217 horsepower 2.7 litre in 2000, along with the introduction of the 3.2 litre Boxster S, which delivered 247 horsepower. Although examples of all these variants are within our budget, it's the early 2.5 litre cars which I think are the ones to buy, if you can still find a good one at this price. Many have now gone higher, some even into five figures. As true for the Porsche as it is for all the German Roadsters featured so far, I would try and find one in a colour that isn't silver or grey. I know that it's the historic motor racing colour for Germany, but there's so many out there that one in a blue or red, or even a yellow if you're brave, will I believe command a higher value in the future. Thanks for staying with us. We've reached the halfway point, and now we get into the lesser known or less considered Roadsters that I think are future classics. First of these is the Toyota MR2 Roadster, also known as the MR2 Spider, the third generation of MR2 produced from 2000 to 2007. Like the MGs, it is mid-engined and rear-wheel drive, and is also powered by a 1.8 litre inline-4, rated at 138 horsepower. Although the previous Targa-roofed MR2s were preferred by many, the fully convertible Roadster was widely recognised as the best handling of all the MR2 variants. The next car is also a Roadster by name, the Smart Roadster, launched in 2002 by a joint venture between Mercedes-Benz and Chinese car group Geely, designed to offer the emotion of driving a sports car at an affordable price. Based on a stretched Smart platform, the Roadster uses the same 698cc turbocharged three-cylinder engine as the facelifted 4.2, mated to a 6-speed automated manual transmission. Two power options were available, 60 or 80 horsepower, which don't seem a lot, but the curb weight is only 790 kilos. Unlike the Smart, the next option is all about Italian heritage and flair, the Alfa Romeo Spider of 1993 to 2004. Essentially a soft-top version of the contemporary GTV, the Type 916 Spider has Pininfarina styling, and later models were actually assembled by them too. Originally powered by a 3-litre V6, the Spiders in our price range have the 148 horsepower 2-litre twin-spark powertrain. But with the four headlamps piercing through the nose cone and the deep triangle of Alfa's iconic grille, this Spider is still a very desirable car to be seen in. Another Roadster reviving an historic name is the Nissan 350Z Roadster of 2004, recalling the Z cars of Nissan and Datsun of the late 60s and 70s. The 350Z is a front mid-engine rear-wheel drive car and is powered by a 287 horsepower 3.5 litre V6 engine, which can propel the car to 60 miles per hour in 6.4 seconds. The 350Z was considered by many journalists to be a more than worthy adversary to the popular Porsche Boxster. The only American badged Roadster to make the cut is the Chrysler Crossfire, although it was made by Karmann in Germany and shares 80% of its components with the first generation SLK that we featured earlier. The underpinning platform for the Crossfire was effectively a hand-me-down for Mercedes when they moved on to the second generation SLK. Externally though, the two models look very different, with the styling of the Crossfire inspired by Art Deco architecture of the Chrysler building in New York and evoking the luxury cars of the 1930s. The Crossfire is powered by Mercedes' 3.2 litre V6 engine rated at 215 horsepower. So compared to the SLK, you get more cylinders and more power for the same budget. In 1989, Lotus revived the illustrious Elan name for the Peter Stevens design Type M100. Its front-wheel drive format met with a mixed reception, but Lotus maintained that for a vehicle of its size, front-wheel drive was faster and better for handling through the bends. It was powered by a 1.6 litre four-cylinder Isuzu engine, tuned and modified by Lotus to give 162 horsepower, a 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds, and a top speed of 137 miles per hour. Although you can still find these cars at around £5,000, many are already heading towards £10,000. So if you fancy getting your hands on the only front-wheel drive car that Lotus built, better get in quick. My last pick, and possibly the scarcest and most unusual of the choices, is the Daihatsu Copen. Built to follow the Japanese K-car regulations in terms of size, weight, engine displacement and power, the first generation Copen was launched in 2002 with a 660cc turbocharged engine giving 67 horsepower and a theoretical top speed of 110 miles per hour. Eventually. The Copen styling was said to have been influenced by the Audi TT, which is clear to see, and also featured a power-folded hardtop roof like the Mercedes SLK and SL, giving the best of both worlds of coupe and convertible. So there you have 14 potential future classic roadsters, all available in the UK classifieds today for £5,000 or under. Let me know in the comments if any of them take your fancy, or whether there are other affordable roadsters that you think will become the classic cars of the future. Don't forget also to give this video a like and a share, and subscribe to the channel to see more videos on classic sports cars and Grand Tourers. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.